Hi everyone, I'm Daviana Augusta. I'm a nationally certified Pilates teacher, comprehensive balanced body instructor, and orthokinetics professional trainer. I've had 8+ years in the fitness industry, and I've also gotten my Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology. So fitness is a big part of my life. And this month, we're gonna go over exercise families. Today, we're gonna talk a little bit more specifically about a very traditional exercise called the 100. Now, if you've done the 100, it's a really important core stability exercise we do, and we do them on different pieces of equipment. And knowing that there are different purposes for different variations of the 100. And if you've taken a Pilates class, you've noticed that there are different ways that we have tackled the 100. And it's also important to note that there are different progressions that we do when it comes to the 100. So today we're going to go over different variations of the 100 or progressions of the 100, starting from easiest to most challenging. So one of the first places I may start a client when we are talking about the 100 would probably be on the reformer. As counterintuitive as that might sound, a lot of times we think that the mat is the first place we would start, but one place I would actually start for somebody who's very new to Pilates would be on the reformer, and we would do supine arm work here. And the reason being is it kind of teaches you how to maintain that neutral spine while the arm's in motion, because once we start adding the perturbations or the the pulses in the 100, then you kind of get an idea of how this exercise is kind of a stepping stone for that. So what I'm going to do is lie on back. Oftentimes we'll tell our clients to get a rolled up mat here to place underneath your low back. And the reason being is it gives you a little bit more of a tactile feedback, so that when you are lying back and you're having pressure onto the pad here, it allows you to keep in mind you're not allowing that arch or that extension while we're doing this abdominal exercise or using the abdominals here. So I'll have my client or the student in a class lie on back here, okay? And we'll start by finding our neutral spine. So oftentimes one way we can do that quick and easily is taking a little triangle and placing it right over our pelvis. And what we want to look for is that the fingertips and thumbs are level. Now, if the fingertips are higher, that indicates a posterior tilt. If the thumbs are higher, that indicates a little bit more of an extension. So we want a nice, flat, parallel triangle to the reformer. Now, once we've found that neutral pelvis, we're gonna lift one leg up and then the other. And this is just the start of this exercise. So we'll grab the handles here. And then we'll pull the hands over the shoulders, maintain that neutral spine, and we'll go ahead and start in circles here. So this would be very important to start off with, just so that somebody can understand the stamina or the endurance it takes to do a full 100 while the arms are in motion. So if I had somebody starting out with Pilates and wanted them to progress to the full 100, this is where I would begin. All right, so let's say that the student or the client understands the neutral pelvis alignment and is able to hold that connection while the arms are in motion doing arm work. We would probably progress from there to a mat exercise. And it actually wouldn't be straight to the 100. What we would actually progress to would be single leg stretch and single straight leg stretch. Another variation of being able to maintain that neutral spine while the arms are in motion. And now we're adding leg motion here. So what that would look like is finding your neutral spine. The bottom tips of the shoulder blades are touching the mat. And we're gonna straighten one leg out and bring one in. Now, the big thing here is now we're in a lifted position. I'm working my deep neck flexors here, which is also a big part of the 100. Now, let's say somebody has a lot of neck pain or strain, or maybe some limitations or contraindications there. You can support the head with a ball, or you can also keep the head down. But by the book, if we're going by the book, this is kind of where our next progression is. So there are ways to modify. Now, the single leg stretch is a variation where we alternate the leg motions, maintaining this C curve, as well as maintaining that neutral spine. Now, if you do have osteoporosis or osteopenia, you don't necessarily need to maintain the spine, or if you have something like stenosis or spondylolisthesis, spondy. But if you have any type of spinal contraindications like that, then you might have to change the type of neutral position to more of an imprint. So that is a single leg stretch. Again, working on introducing leg motions with that isometric curl up here. Now, straight leg stretch would be the next progression here. So we'll curl back up, we'll straighten both legs out, lower one leg down, Now the goal here is to not wobble the body as we're alternating between our legs here. That's going to be very important as we transition to the 100. Because once we get to the 100, we're going to pulse with the arms here. Now, we've practiced how to maintain a neutral spine. We've practiced how to maintain a neutral spine while the legs and the arms are in motion. Now, the next progression would be to actually perform the 100 on the mat. Now, we'll start with the most basic variation, and that's going to be where the feet are flat here. And we'll start with what's called the 100 prep. Our arms are straight up to the ceiling. We're going to pull the shoulder blades together. And then as we curl up, I'm still keeping my chest open, looking downward. My chin is to my throat, so I'm not here to my chest, but I'm lengthening through my neck here as well. So this oftentimes can feel very uncomfortable for people because we are working a deep muscle in the neck. But the big thing is we're not tucking, we're lengthening and bringing the chin to the throat here. Now, oftentimes we'll start here, just getting into that position, making sure the chest is open, our pelvis is neutral, and our lumbar spine is neutral. And we'll kind of work our way into the 100 from here. So we call this the 100 prep. Now, just for the concept of what the 100 is, we're going to imagine we're lying on a thin sheet of water and we're slapping the water with that movement originating from the shoulder. So slapping the water, and with each slap, we're counting it as one beat, one breath, okay? We call it the 100 because it's for 100 breaths, 100 beats. So now that we got the concept of maintaining that nice open chest posture and the pulses through the arms, now we can look at our leg variations. So we would maybe start, if you're just beginning, we'll start with the feet down. That would be our level 1. Level 2 would be feet and tabletop. Level 3 would be feet towards the ceiling. And then level 4 would be as low as you can keep your back stable. Now we can add movements with the ankles. People get pretty creative here with this type of exercise. Now, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to start with my feet down. And typically, a good way to begin this is doing splitting that 100 into 2. So we'll do 50 beats, 50 breaths, and then we'll take a mini rest period and then do the next set here. So I'm going to go ahead and curl up. I'm going to in for 5 and out for 5. There's 3, 4, 5. Good, and then there is 50 breaths there. So that would be how I would split it up on the mat, just to get people oriented with the 100 and the whole concept of pulsing in that core contracted position here. Now, the reason why the pulsing is important is it adds a layer of instability. So as you're pulsing, the core has to really tighten to help stabilize the spine and the rest of the body. So that's why this is a very challenging exercise. Now, you most certainly don't have to do the staccato breath, which is what I was doing. You can always start with just a deep breath in, deep breath out, and that can be a starting point. And as you get more comfortable, you can add the staccato breath. Imagining that you're sipping through a straw, sipping air through the straw, also adds a layer of kind of instability as you're doing this exercise. Now this is where this gets a little bit more exciting. Now we're going to add some resistance here. So we've understood the concept of keeping, everything neutral, everything tight. Now we're going to go ahead and add in some more external resistance. Now personally, I think starting the reformer here is a good place to start. Mainly because you have consistent tension through the ropes here. Once we get to the trapeze table, the springs can add another layer of challenge. So with the reformer, I have myself on a red and a blue. You can also change that to just one red spring, depending on how challenging this is for you. But I'm going to start here, because oftentimes we'll transition from arm work to the 100 in a class or in a private session. So again, I'm going to use my little assist here to make sure that I'm keeping that neutral spine. I'm not letting my back arch in this movement. And then we're going to take the straps here. Again, if there's any contraindications or limitations surrounding the neck, you can also lift the headrest up, keep the neck planted here. But personally, I think it's important to work the deep neck flexors. So we'll go ahead and lift the legs up. I'm going to curl up into that 100 position, and we're going to start pulsing.
So notice I'm changing my leg position, just showing different options in terms of challenge here. So if you're in a class and you want to introduce different variations for others, this is a good way to keep one exercise challenging for all skill levels.
And that is the 100 on the reformer. So now we'll transition to the tower. Now this is the next progression beyond the reformer, and it's a little bit more challenging in a lot of different ways. Now with the tower, trapeze table, Cadillac, the big thing here is you're working with the individual springs, and you can also transition between a pull down bar and individual handles here. Now I have 2 long yellow springs for the pull down bar, and I have my short yellow springs for the handles. Now, why you might want to use this variation depends on the individual. Maybe they have a rotational bias to one direction. Maybe they perform a unilateral sport, some sort of bias that allows them to create balance between both sides of the body. Now, the other challenge here is that with these springs on each limb, you have another layer of instability for the core to stabilize against. So that's the other reason why we might want to use the tower. It's also more challenging because we have more positions here. So we'll start with the pull down bar. I'm going to start with my feet flat here. And I'm going to curl up and pulse from here. Now there is more resistance here than there is on the reformer. Now the other option would be to bring the bar below the knees. Now you can start in a tabletop position, curl up, and pulse. So I feel this a little bit more in my upper abdominals and more in my arms than I would on the reformer and the mat. Now let's say we want to regress a little bit, or we want to work more balance through both sides of the body. We'll use a short yellow spring with a handle. Now this has a little bit more variation in resistance. I could bring it higher to make it more heavy. I can bring it lower to make it a little bit lighter. Now from here, when you're in this position of the 100, you'll find that it shows itself if somebody favors an arm or a direction. So this might be a reason why you want to try at least adding the tower, the variation of the tower into a class or with a client. Now let's say we want to start adding different leg positions. We've gotten the concept of the 100 down, we've done it on different pieces of equipment with and without resistance. Now let's say we want to make it a little bit more difficult adding in a lower leg rise. The next variation would be on the mat. On the mat, we're going to go ahead and curl the head up, and we'll go into double straight leg stretch. Now this is a lower and lift, which makes it much more challenging once we start adding in the pulses. So making sure we get the concept of lowering and lifting, the strength here to maintain that neutral spine, we'll add in the arm work here, or the arm pulses. So we've perfected the 100. We've perfected the 100 on the mat, the reformer, we've done it on the tower. Now what would be the next more challenging step for the individual? We would probably move to the chair. Now this exercise is called reverse swan. With this one, you can also, if you do have a tower or a Cadillac, you can support the legs here. You can start with a bent knee. But the big thing here is that we're doing a bit of a lower and a lift with the torso. So part of the challenge is finding the balance. On your sit bones, we reach the hands up, circle them back to the pedal, and we lower down towards the floor, and we lift it back up. Now we start with a bent knee here, and then we can progress to a straight leg, lowering and lifting. Now a couple of things here. We do need to have the mobility in the shoulders and the chest to be able to get into this position. We also have to be able to trust our core strength to lower and lift, or rise and lower the pedal from here. Now lastly, the most challenging variation of the 100 or core stability family that we are working on today would most likely be the backstroke. Now that's typically done on the reformer. The backstroke is a very interesting exercise. It's a little bit more difficult, but it's one way we can transition into the 100 for maybe a more advanced client. So typically we start here with the elbows wide, fists together, and the knees in tabletop. We'll reach the arms and legs forward, we'll circle them both out, and we'll assume the 100 position from here. We'll bend the elbows, reach them forward,
circle both the arms and leg out, and reach into the 100 position here. Now in a class, you can transition to the actual 100 from here, which is why this would be the last and most challenging variation to transition into the 100. So there you have it, the 100, the exercise family, and all of the exercises that can help you prepare and perfect the 100. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, leave them below. Like, share, save, follow, and I hope to see you guys on the next video. Bye!